Hey everyone. So it's officially 5:30 now, and so I'll go ahead and get started with the presentation for the June meetup of KCJUG. I hope everything goes a lot better this time. We've been having a few issues with live streaming, so trying a new service now, StreamYard. I think I mentioned that over in the comments. So hopefully this goes a lot better than it has in the previous months and can kind of be smooth sailing from here on out. So my name again is Billy Carando, and this month Kevin Sutter will be joining us to present on Jakarta EE, kind of the current and the future. But that said, let's just go ahead and quickly go through this Java news segment, and then I'll hand it off to Kevin for his presentation. So once again, welcome to the Kansas City Java Users Group. Thank you to our sponsors, VMware Tanzu, even though YRC, even though we're doing this all virtual now. I want to again thank YRC still for hosting us when we were still physically meeting, and hopefully we'll be back to that here sometime soon once things kind of get resolved with COVID-19. And of course, also IBM for sponsoring Kevin to present here tonight. So what kind of happened this month in Java? So Java JDK 5.15 entered the ramp down phase 1. It's on track for a September 15th release. And you can kind of see all that's going to be included in this release at the link. And I also included, or I'll get the link to this presentation also in the meetup notes and everything. So everyone can go to that link and not actually, have to write it down. But one thing I did focus on with the JDK, one really cool feature that is coming in it is the instance of pattern matching. So one big complaint a lot of people have with Java is that it's very verbose. And so instance of pattern matching is part of, I believe it's called Project Amber, which is about kind of updating some of the JDK features. So like var, text block, I believe that's all part of Project Amber. And so pattern matching is part of that. And so this is an example of it with the instance of parameter matching, where you would have to have this annoying thing of if object instance of string, and then you would have to cast it to string within the if block. Now with pattern matching, you won't have to do that. If you do object instance of the string, then you can just directly assign it or use as a string within that if block. But then, of course, you can use it in that else block because it obviously wouldn't be a string. And you can read more about it at then this link for pattern matching and some of the other stuff about pattern matching coming as well. Some other releases. So Spring Boot 2.3, I believe, was released since the last KCJUG, if not pretty soon after. And actually, it's now to 2.3.1. And so the big things that came with it are Java 14 support, improved Docker support, and a few other things along with that as well. Also, Spring Boot is changing to a new versioning schema. This can be kind of slowly whirling out over like the next year or two, but it's going to do a year-based versioning schema. And actually, I need to get a link to that if you're curious about that. They actually announced that back at the end of April, but I forgot to include it in last month's notes. Kevin will get much more into this in his presentation, but of course also Jakarta EE9. Their milestone 1 release is June 23rd, and their full release is supposed to also be then in September, but I'll leave Kevin to talk about that. Other news, so our lightning rounds are coming up October 15th. So if you kind of want to get your feet wet presenting, but don't want to do this full, about 60 or so minute presentation, this is a great opportunity to do that. Or you just have something you want to share. So definitely check that out. I just created a Google Forms, and so you can sign up there. Again, I'll get this kind of stuff put into the meetup information so you don't have to write down this link. But you can fill out there, it can be like a 5, 10, 15 plus minute presentation, kind of whatever suits your need. But it's a really good way. And also now with us doing live streaming, for a lot of conferences, when they're looking to accept people, they do kind of look to previous presentations you did. So now you can actually link to that maybe when you're submitting a conference if you're wanting to kind of join the speaker circuit. And of course, if you have any questions about that, also let me know. I'll be happy to help out with that. There's also a few conferences coming up. Of course, all these all virtual. But there's J for KIO, September 2nd through 3rd. Spring One Platform, also September 2nd through 3rd. And EclipseCon, October 19th to 22nd. There's a few other presentations or conferences coming up. I really probably need to kind of get this updated because we are going to be rapidly approaching the fall conference season. It may not be quite as full in previous years, but there should still be ones like Oracle Code One and others, just because conferences are going to be wanting to release information and all that. Anything we miss? I guess unfortunately there's a few moments delay between this and anything in chat. But if there's anything you else want to cover, definitely put it into the chat window, and I'll try to answer it maybe during the presentation, or share it out if we can as well. With that said, I'll go ahead and bring Kevin on here. Oops, let me get over to the. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Doing good. Thank you.
I don't know if we can. Okay, good. We can hear you now. Awesome. Maybe a little bit of delay there, but with that said, I'll go ahead and hand off the speaking baton to you so you can give us information on what's coming with the World of Jakarta.
Okay, so is that displaying right, or is there a problem with the window?
Looks like there is a problem with the window. Give us a moment. Yeah, go ahead and try maybe resharing that screen.
Boy, every time
live streaming is always a little bit of a fun here.
Okay, let me just try it again.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Yeah, try maybe advancing the slide or something to see if that will redisplay correctly, or. Doesn't seem like it's refreshing properly.
How come it worked this afternoon?
Yeah, I know. Of course, that's how it always goes. Maybe you can hop back out and hop back in or something and restart it, and I'll keep people entertained for a couple of seconds.
Oh no, people say that it looks good. Oh.
But I don't know if it's quite refreshing, and they're a few moments behind, so they probably just saw the first page.
Okay, so leave and come back in?
Yeah, that might be best, and yeah, hopefully that will resolve these issues. Yeah, I guess it's only like refreshing like the top left-hand corner. All right, so some hopefully momentary technical difficulties. Yeah, Bill, I'm blaming you. You jinxed it. So Kevin is going to hop back out and then hopefully hop back into the stream here, and maybe that will resolve his trouble. So yeah, he's hopping back in here. Always something. So far, a little bit easier though. I think I would be freaking out a lot more if I was using my previous setup. Hey, Kevin. So
Hi.
Let's see if this works now. No.
Okay, so let's try this.
That is interesting. Yeah, it's still only refreshing part of your screen.
Yep, it is. Okay, should I go? Let me do one other thing.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try that as well, Pratik, to see if that could be it. That's right. At least luckily that screen's not sharing anymore for me. Yeah. right. Communicating with Kevin right now off screen. But please ignore the person behind the curtain. Are many people kind of already at least generally aware with what Jakarta is, or is this kind of like both like what is Jakarta and just trying to figure it out? Let's see. I think okay. It looks like it's running better this time now. All right.
Okay.
Hey,
So
Kevin. I think it's running better. It looks like it was refreshing properly now. If it's okay to share it, so. Yeah, there we go. All right. I will stop trying to do my bad job at entertaining people and I'll hand off the presenting to you. So this is all the typical part of live streaming. But with that said, they're all yours, Kevin.
okay. Thank you very much. So you'll have to interrupt me if something breaks again, but I think we've got it working now. So thanks, Billy. Thanks for asking me to do this. He kind of threw out a general ask to find out if there's anybody that would be willing to talk about Jakarta EE, and I jumped at the chance. I've been in the Java EE environment for many, many, many years. And for IBM, I have been leading the Java EE and now the Jakarta EE efforts for WebSphere. So I am the overall architect for all of that within WebSphere. And what I'm doing now in the community is I am actually driving the Jakarta EE9 release. So I'm also working in the open source community for Jakarta EE9 and trying to get it into our Liberty product for coming up. So let's get going. We figure about 35 minutes. So I'm going to go through a lot of information. The charts will be made available. I gave the link to Billy and he will provide that to everybody that is listening in. So if I go too quickly, now, right now, I don't have the live comments up either. So I'm only seeing the presentation. So if there's something that has, you need to stop me, Billy, you're going to have to butt in and then we can talk about it at that time. So I'm going to talk, I have to give everybody a little bit of level set. I got to make sure that everybody is aware of what Jakarta EE is and where it came from. And then what are we currently doing for, we just released Jakarta EE8. We are now working on Jakarta EE9. And then if this interests you, then how can you get involved? And I've got some links on various mailing lists and ways to get involved, even from a JUG perspective. So there's additional information there. Okay, so Billy already kind of mentioned this a little bit. I'm going to give you the brief overview at the very beginning. So if you have to drop, you're going to get all of the main items here in the next minute. So Jakarta EE9 is well underway. We are having a milestone release party, I guess, next Tuesday. Things are really coming together for that milestone release. So I think we have made fantastic progress in showing Jakarta EE9, the functionality that's available. And so next Tuesday, we're having a little release party. And I've got a link in the document here so that if you want to register and listen in to various people, including myself, we're going to have a panel, talk about the content a little bit and be able to ask questions and stuff like that. Previous to this, we did have Jakarta EE8 that came out last September. And I'll be going into quite a bit more detail on that. We have many compatible implementations. We have more compatible implementations for Jakarta EE8 than Java EE8 has had in the last 2.5 years. So in about 6 months' time, we have more compatible implementations supporting Jakarta EE than we had for Java EE. So it's a great success story. We have the community fully engaged on this. And whether you're talking about just reviewing things, writing bug reports, testing, participating, writing code, writing specifications, participating in the mailing list. The community is very much involved in helping to drive Jakarta EE. And Jakarta EE is based on the Eclipse Foundation, and so they have been very helpful as well. Okay, so this is the level set. So if I'm reviewing too much stuff, Billy, interrupt and tell me to go faster. But I want to make sure that people are aware. So back in September 2017, Java EE decided to go open source and moved it to the Eclipse Foundation. And we came up with a new brand, a new name. We're calling it Jakarta EE. So that's what happened back in September 2017. Now, there was quite a bit of, I'll say, legal, political things that had to happen because Oracle has always owned everything associated with Java EE. And so now they were going to move it to open source, and there were a lot of hiccups that we had to do along the way. So it took us a little while. It took us about 2 years, September 2019, before we could actually come out with a new release called Jakarta EE8. But now we should be able to start moving much faster. So I'll just be talking a little bit about this as we go through. Jakarta EE, yes, we want it to be cloud native Java. Work on multi-cloud. We aren't trying to focus, like for us, IBM cloud or Amazon or Microsoft. It would work on any cloud environment. We want to have faster innovation than what we had in the past. Full releases of Java EE in the past would take 3 to 4 years. Okay, so now if you look at what we're doing with Jakarta EE9, we're looking to provide that within 1 year of Jakarta EE8. Now, granted, there's not a whole lot of new function, but as you'll see, there is a lot of work that had to be done in order to release Jakarta EE9. So we're already showing that we can shorten this release cycle from 3 to 4 years down to 1. We want it to go even further. At the same time, we want to have investment protection because we know a lot of customers have been writing code for Java EE for many, many, many years, and we don't want to throw that away. We want that code to continue to execute. But now it's going to be done in an open source environment with open source processes and open specification processes. The business risk mitigation goes back to the investment protection. We want to make this as easy as possible to consume Jakarta EE8, Jakarta EE9, Jakarta EE10 as we move forward. And of course, as we're moving along, we are constantly working with the various tools, the monitoring tools, the editors, the IDEs to ensure that your development environment is up to date and working well with Jakarta EE. Okay, and I think I've already kind of touched on a lot of these items here. So let's just keep going. Okay, so Jakarta EE, it's defined as a working group. So it's kind of like an industry consortium. And I have a chart coming up that shows all of the different teams and organizations that are working with Jakarta EE. And so we want, this working group, of course, we have to drive the Jakarta EE brand. That's our number one goal. We want Jakarta EE to succeed. So along with that, we have to help establish the technical roadmap. So the working group, which I am part of, actually feeds into the platform team, which I'm also part of, to try to establish the proper technical roadmap. I will point out that I'm involved in a lot of different areas related to Jakarta EE. I am on the steering committee. I am on the specification committee. I am on the platform project team, and I'm on the PMC for an Eclipse project. Along with, I'm on a few other projects as well, but those are the main items that I work with. But it shows how much, we want to continue this communication and make sure that all of these different teams that need to work together in order to produce a product are communicating. So another job of ours is to approve all of the specifications. Because of the IP flow, the intellectual property flow, we need to ensure that everything goes into a specification is properly vetted and proper, that the proper IP flow has been approved. So this is very important piece of the working group. And then overall, we want to make sure that we build a community. So from the get-go, we've been working with the overall community. Maybe you have heard of the Jakarta ambassadors. It's led up by Reza Rahman, and he tries to go out and do more promotion of Jakarta EE. And so that whole team is working with the community as well as all of the organizations that work on Jakarta EE and the individuals. So here's a quick chart on the various strategic members, the enterprise members, and the participation members for the working group. You can see the top layer. These are the teams that got together way back when in 2017 to try to figure out what are we going to do with this Java EE that is being contributed by Oracle. You can see that Oracle is still part of this. They are an integral part of Jakarta EE. So they did not just dump and run. They didn't just, okay, here's Java EE, we're done with it, you guys go off and work on it. We picked it up with Oracle, and they have been very instrumental in helping us, guide into these new releases with Jakarta EE 8 and 9 and so on. Okay, so this chart is a couple of months old, but it still kind of shows the depth of the involvement in Jakarta EE. So 47 specification projects. So all of those different pieces that fit into Java EE and Jakarta EE. So maybe, JPA, EJBs, connectors, concurrency, all of those are separate specification projects. And then each one of those have at least one and probably more repositories. So you can see, it's almost triple the number of Git repositories. Well, then look at the lines of code. There's almost 65 million lines of code that were contributed to the Jakarta EE effort. So you can see this is a very large piece of open source. I don't know how it compares to other contributions, but it's got to be one of the largest contributions to open source. Okay, so now Jakarta EE 8. We got to, last September, we were able to announce Jakarta EE 8. Jakarta EE 8 is fully compatible with Java EE 8. This was a key goal, a key requirement of Jakarta EE 8. We needed to make sure that all applications, all TCKs, all application servers that currently work with and are compatible with Java EE 8, that they will work with Jakarta EE 8, because we needed that transition to be seamless. We needed it to do that for acceptance. So that was a #1 goal, and we met it. Every one of the application servers that were Java EE 8 compliant, almost immediately they were able to pass the TCK and become Jakarta EE 8. So all of our WebSphere products, Wildfly, Tommy, Pyara, JBoss, any of those products that were Java EE 8 compliant were now Jakarta EE 8 compliant. Very easy to get past that. The big difference, though, is how everything is open now. So now all of the specifications are open. All of the TCKs are open. This is really key. The TCK is the Technology Compliance Kit. And what that does in the past with all Java EE, all the TCKs were completely closed. I mean, even us, even IBM, there were a select 1 or 2 people within IBM that could look at the TCK source code. I couldn't do it. I was leading the Java EE development within IBM, and when we would hit a TCK error, I could not look at the source code to find out, okay, what's wrong. I had to go through an intermediate, explain the problem. He would go off and look at the code, and he'd come back and give me more hints. But that's all it was, a big black box. Now it's all open source. I can look at all of the source code. You can look at all of the source code. It's all open and very easy to build and execute. And it's not just defined at the platform level. You can do it for the individual projects as well. I've already mentioned we have more compatible implementations for Jakarta EE8 than we ever did for Java EE8, and we're already on a much shorter life cycle. Okay, platform integration, I think I've already touched on that, and a fully transparent branding process. See, this is a little different too, because with Oracle and the JCP, it was a one-on-one agreement. So there was a licensing agreement between Oracle and IBM. And so those teams would communicate as to how to become TCK compliant. Then there would be another agreement between Oracle and Red Hat, and those teams would do their own. And then between Oracle and Apache for Tommy, they would do their own. And it's kind of like, okay, we didn't know how Red Hat was doing it. Red Hat didn't know how we were doing it with Tommy, with Pyara, anything. Now, with Jakarta EE, it's fully transparent. Everybody knows what everybody's doing for the branding and the TCK compliance, and it is just so much better. Okay, I've already mentioned that Jakarta EE is fully compatible with Java EE8. That was key. With Jakarta EE8, everything still used the Java X namespace. And I'm pointing that out because for Jakarta EE8 or Jakarta EE9, that changes. And I'll touch on that a little bit later. Same behavior as Java EE8. No changes to your applications or to the application servers or to the test cases or anything. Okay, so how am I doing on time? Okay, I think I'm all right still. So this chart, we've been using this chart here for, well, several months, I guess. And I really like it because it does a nice comparison of how we used to have to do it under the JCP and Oracle and how we are now doing it with Jakarta EE. So in the past, many times the specifications came first and then the code. Well, with Jakarta EE, we want the code, if not first, to be at the same time as the specification so that we can prove that everything is working along the way instead of waiting until the end. Before, the specs were led by a specific specification lead from a particular company. That's out the door. Now it's all collaborative. Yes, we do have project leads, but that's just a requirement for the Eclipse projects. That does not mean that they lead the specifications. The specifications are led and driven by the whole community. All the documents in TCKs, I've mentioned this before, were closed source, had no access to it. Now everything is in open source in GitHub repositories. In the past, there was one normative reference implementation, and you all know it. It was called Glassfish. So we still do have a project called Eclipse Glassfish, but that's only one of many compatible implementations. So we have to have one implementation that gets defined as part of the specification version. So when we do Jakarta EE8, we did have Eclipse Glassfish as the compatible implementation that tested that version of the specification. But at the exact same time, we had Open Liberty from WebSphere, and a day later, we had Wildfly from Red Hat. And so all three of us were basically compatible implementations on day one. And that would have never happened in the past. And I mentioned this before, the Oracle certification process was very much a black box, and it was a one-on-one negotiation between each of the licensees, and now it is all open. Okay, I think I've already kind of touched on a lot of this related to the open source for the TCK license and the process. This shows the compatible implementations that we have so far. We have 8 that are compatible with the full platform and 4 that are compatible with the web profile. In most cases, if you're compatible, well, definitely if you're compatible with the web profile, you are compatible with a subset of the platform. If you're compatible with the platform, you most likely can be compatible with the web profile. There's just a little bit different configuration that has to be done to verify it. Okay, so now moving forward a little bit. So that's a little bit of history. Now let's talk about where we're at here with Jakarta EE9. This chart, I should point out, a lot of these charts are from the common community. We put together a chart deck so that we would have a consistent story when people would go out and do stuff like this. You know, I'm presenting to the Kansas City JUG, and so we want to have a consistent story. But of course, because I'm a little bit tighter with what's actually being done, I can add to this and you know, amplify the message a little bit more. So that's what the next couple of charts are able to do, just because I'm tighter with the whole process. Okay, so Jakarta EE9, kind of a big change. One thing that we had to do, the very first line right here, we have to move to a new namespace. Part of this legal wrangling that had to be done with Oracle, we have to change from JavaX namespace to the Jakarta namespace. Now, at first, this was really causing heartache for us. But, you know, to be honest, the more that we get into this, this is actually giving us a very good, fresh start. So, and we are providing quite a few tools that will help with all of this migration between the JavaX and Jakarta namespace. So don't be too concerned right now. Don't go back to your, you know, your home IT shops and start saying, oh no, everything's going to be a mess. We are doing a lot, especially from the WebSphere perspective. But I do know that other groups from Pyara, Tommy, I don't know Oracle's plans, but a lot of the groups are looking to try to make it very, well, as easy as possible to move from the JavaX namespace to the Jakarta namespace. Another thing that we did with Jakarta EE9 is we're trying to lower the bar of entry. Java EE, every release, there was just more and more function where any new application servers had to meet this new level of function in order to be certified at that Java level, Java EE level. With Jakarta EE9, there are a few specifications that we're just saying, you know, nobody uses these anymore, so let's drop them. So they're no longer part of the required piece for Jakarta EE9, so we got rid of some of them. There are a couple of minor enhancements to a small number of specifications, but for the most part, all of the capability from Jakarta EE8 is the same with Jakarta EE9. It says no new specifications. It's a little bit of a stretch there because Java SE8, actually Java SE11, dropped some of the support that used to be in Java SE8. And these pieces like JAX-B and some of the XML web services work, that has to be picked up by us, by Jakarta EE. Otherwise, these applications would no longer have a common specification and implementation to work with. So we did pick up a few of these capabilities that were dropped. And then you see at the bottom, we want to have Java SE11 support. And that's going to be the requirement for Jakarta EE9. You can also certify to Java SE8, but the first thing that you have to certify to is Java SE11 because we still want the Java ecosystem to continue to grow and thrive. So we want Java SE11. We're pushing that forward. That's going to be the base for the certification, but you could also certify a Java SE8 as well. Okay, so here's the thing that I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, because normally this would not come out until next Tuesday, June 23rd. But you guys are special just because of the timing with Billy asking me to do this, and we are pretty much set for the milestone release. I'm going to give you some of this information up front. If you want to be part of the release party that we're having and hear from other people, not just me. There's a register link here. And like I said, these charts will be coming out to you guys. The one thing I do want to point out is the specification pages that we have. So let me go to that page. Second. This one. Okay, so within Jakarta EE, very simple website for you to remember, jakarta.ee. And actually, why don't I just back up from that. So this is the home page for Jakarta EE. Here you can click on specifications, and here are all of the specifications that we have that make up Jakarta EE. Okay, now if you click on the first one here for the platform, you can see that the first one for milestone or for Jakarta EE9, this is our milestone specification. So by coming to this page, it's already live. You can look at all of the information related to this milestone release. If you want to, we've got two versions of the specification document, both in the PDF and HTML format. I'll just click on this here for the HTML. So this is the whole platform specification. You've got the table of contents over here. So this is the whole thing. If you're interested in viewing the specification, here we've got the Java doc. And you can see with the version, let's get rid of that. The version up here, it's the RC2 of our API. And so the whole API for Jakarta EE is available on this website. So you can start to take a look to see what's different here. The TCK, we actually do have a version of the TCK. It's the 900M1 of the TCK. So if you wanted to take a look at what we have for the TCK, you could download that, take a look at it. The API itself, we have an RC2 version of the API, and that's available out in Maven Central. I'm going to jump down to here, the compatible implementations. I'm going to show you a different page because if I click on that, it's just going to download it. But here, Eclipse Glassfish, you can see the different versions that we have for the milestone. We've got both full profile and web profile for milestone 1. So we've got running versions of Glassfish that support the full profile and web profile. They're not, I should be clear, they are not 100% TCK compliant yet because we just aren't there yet. Otherwise, we'd be releasing the product. Right now, this is just a milestone. But we are well on our way of having TCK tests running and having successes. And so then the other thing I wanted to point out here was the schedule. So we also have a pointer to our schedule, and Billy had pointed this out. We've got the June 23rd that's coming up next week. And we still have a goal for September 16th. This is a week before Code 1, and we are still shooting to have this complete. Right now, we don't know if we can make it. This is an open source project, so we're dependent on the community. We're dependent on everybody participating in order to get this ready. We think we can still do it, but we don't know for sure. So I am pointing out that the dates are tentative and subject to change, but this is what we are driving towards. Okay, so I wanted to point these out because every one of these pages, if we go back here, every one of these pages have a similar type thing. If you're interested in Jakarta Batch, you can come in here, click on this, and here's everything related to the milestone release for Jakarta Batch. So it's a very nice spot to go and find anything that you need or want about any of the specifications, any of these technologies that make up Jakarta EE9. Okay, so I think I've already touched on these pages here. So this will be a good reminder just to be able to go out and take a look at these other pages. once you get the charts. Okay, so I'm not going to go into all the detail here because I am running a little bit low on time. So this is the one thing that I wanted to point out is how we are moving forward. So you can see between Java EE8 and Jakarta EE8, the exact version of Glassfish 5.1 was used to certify to both Java EE8 and Jakarta EE8. Same thing for Open Liberty. The exact same version of Open Liberty that was Java EE8 compliant was used to do Jakarta EE8 compliance. Okay, now as we move forward, and with the namespace change, we're definitely going to have different versions of the compatible implementations. So when we move to Jakarta EE9, Eclipse Glassfish is going to be 6.0. You noticed that right now it's 6.0.0-M1, so for milestone 1. Open Liberty, we are right now doing betas. So every month that we have a refresh on Open Liberty, we're going to have a new beta. And the beta is going to have more and more function related to Jakarta EE9. So that's how we are going to be releasing this over the next few months. And then as we continue this process, and we're already, if you're participating out in the community, we're already looking at, okay, what's the content of Jakarta EE10? And so as we start defining that, then of course that will be a different version of Glassfish. It'll be a different version of Open Liberty, a different version of Wildfly. So everything will continue to progress. Okay, so part of my pitch here is I like to try to get people more involved. And there's so many different ways to get involved. Some people think that, well, you know, I talk with a lot of different people and they say, yeah, but I don't actually write code. How can I get involved? Well, there's documentation, there's marketing and promotion, there's doing conferences. Billy talked about these, you know, the lightning rounds that are coming up. Maybe there's something here that interests you. Maybe there's some piece of Jakarta that interests you. You could take a look at it, play with it a little bit, experiment, and you could do a little 5-minute lightning talk on it. It's just something to think about. There are so many ways to get, you know, to participate. Mailing lists are probably the #1 way that people get involved. And once they get involved, then they kind of graduate over here to GitHub and they start going into the repositories and start, you know, maybe writing issues, helping out with testing, even doing PRs. You know, we get PRs from people that are giving us code that's either going to go into the specification, going into the APIs, going into the implementations. A lot of participation there. Blog posts. It's another way to get involved. If you just have some interest in some aspect, you know, writing a short blog about what you've done. It's a great way to get connected. Every month we have Jakarta Tech Talks where we bring in multiple different people to come in and give talks on different topics. Now, a lot of them are related to Jakarta EE, but we also have tech talks like on microprofile. I am also involved with microprofile, and we get talks on that. So, although, let's see, I'm trying to think. A lot of them are related to Eclipse projects, but they don't have to be. You could come in and give a tech talk on some other tangent that's somehow related to Java. It would still be accepted. Okay, so this is where the Kansas City JUG, maybe this is something that you could think about, maybe get involved with. We have an Adopt a Spec program. And what this does, it allows a JUG to say, you know, maybe a JUG has a particular affinity to batch or to connectors or to persistence, you know, whatever it happens to be. Then that JUG can kind of like be a lightning rod for it. They can work with that team directly, maybe help test, write blogs, write documentation, feed into the specification, any way that they could get a little bit more involved and it's a little bit more direct. That's the idea of this. So there's the code that you can end up using. We have a URL at the bottom of the page. So there's a lot of different ways to at least, start to look around, see what's available, and see if it might be of interest to your JUG. And I've mentioned this many times, it's very easy to get involved with our different specification projects, whether you're looking at just contributing or if you want to graduate and become a committer. That's what normally happens. You have to start as a contributor because you just have to start somewhere, see if you're interested. And once you get involved and you start, people start recognizing your contributions, then you can be nominated as a committer. I just did that today for somebody that has gotten involved with the platform project. They've been coming to our meetings. They've been participating on our mailing lists, and they are really providing a lot of good input. He has not written one line of code for the platform project yet, but because of his other contributions, I nominated him for a committer, and so far it looks like it's going through. So a lot of different ways to get involved. Also, we do have a YouTube channel. So all of the different things that we have with these tech talks, the community calls, the different platform calls, all the different things that we end up recording, we have it available. Ivar Grimstead is our main marketing person for Jakarta EE, and he does periodic updates too, where he just does a short little 10 or 15 minute blurb on some new topic related to Jakarta EE, and he posts it out there. So a lot of different ways to get educated and stay up to date. And this is, I forgot to remove this one. So the Jakarta one live stream, this one was already done last month, but we have another one coming up in September, and actually it lines up with our release. So we are driving for that September 16th release, and that's when the next live stream is. So they're very much tied together, the Jakarta one live stream along with Jakarta EE9 release. So this date is wrong. It's actually September 16th right now. So something to keep in mind after the summer activities. And just another code for getting involved with the different mailing lists. And I think I'm going to skip the rest of this. There's a few more charts related about the Eclipse Foundation, and I don't need to go through all that. The charts will be there so you can look at them and learn more about the foundation. But otherwise, I think we are pretty much done. Yes. So.
Hey, Kevin. Awesome. Thanks. That's a great presentation. We actually have several questions, so I will kind of post them up here, and you can try and you can give them an answer. So earlier on, Bill Dinger asked what license this is released under. So yeah, let us know like which licenses, and then maybe also what's attached with those licenses.
Okay.
Or what it means. Yeah.
Let's see. Should I stop screen share? There we go.
Yeah, that could be good. Unless you want to show something
better. Okay. Yeah. So Jakarta EE, the majority of it is licensed under EPL. That's the Eclipse Public License. There are some pieces that are licensed under the Apache license. I know, Weld, Bean Validation, Jakarta Batch, that's from IBM, Weld, the CDI, and Bean Validation, that's from Red Hat, and all of those are Apache. There's no others. It's either EPL or Apache. So they're both very open, accepted license.
Great. Yeah. So for the most part, it won't be any issues with running stuff in production or anything like that. Like they're all pretty. No. Yeah.
And
exactly.
And for looking at the code as well. So it makes it very easy for anyone to take a look at the code, and they don't have to worry about being contaminated or looking at things, that they don't have license to.
Great. That's great to hear. All right. Another question then from Brandon. And is there anything in the spec that would allow an application compiled against the Java X packages to run with the Jakarta EE9 spec? Or is that going to be the implementation? Yeah.
So, and I didn't put a link in here. There's actually another project that IBM contributed to Eclipse. The name is not very inventive. It's called the Eclipse Transformer. But this is actually what we are using for the Open Liberty runtime. So we have all of this code that we have built against Java X. So like for servlets, JPA, JCA, all of the different technologies, it's already working with Java X. Well, if you know the Open Liberty architecture, those all have specific features defined for them. So servlet 4.0, EJB 3.2, JPA, what are they up to? 3.0? 2.0? I don't remember.
I think 3.0,
Okay.
Yeah.
So all these different versions, that's how you define your features for Open Liberty. When you move forward to using Jakarta EE9, we will have new features defined. So it'll be Servlet 5.0. It's a major version update on all of them. EJB will be EJB 4.0. But what we have done, we've used this transformer tool, so it will do the bytecode manipulation of all of our binaries. So we have the same code running under the Java X namespace as we do for the Jakarta namespace. And so that makes our runtime much smaller, much easier to implement to support Jakarta EE9. And what is really neat about this is that this transformer can be used to modify applications. So I've mentioned the TCK, 43,000 tests in the whole.
That was my question.
Okay, so it's really big. When we first wanted to start testing Open Liberty, we didn't have that the TCK done yet. It still isn't done. We have milestone 1 of the TCK. We don't have everything converted and running with the Jakarta namespace yet. So what we did is we took that whole TCK, ran the transformer against it. It converted everything within the jar files, moved them over to the Jakarta namespace, and we could start using that to test our runtime. So we're doing that with our functional tests, with applications, with TCK tests. It's a very useful tool, and it's not just IBM. Other members of the working group are using the Eclipse Transformer to help them do the same capability. So it's a combined effort in order to make this work. Now, IBM did come up with the idea, and they are providing the initial implementation, but now it's in Eclipse, it's under EPL, and that's what, or did they go Apache? No, I think they're EPL. Okay. And then that's what will be used. So yes, there's a lot of things where we are trying to make this as easy as possible.
Yeah, and for attendees, EPL means Eclipse Public License.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Then we have one last question then from Robar. And you said you heard you were mentioning WebSphere Liberty Profile, and he's just wondering about the continued support for WebSphere Traditional with Jakarta EE.
Yeah, so right now, unfortunately, we don't have any plans for WebSphere Traditional to move to support Jakarta EE. It supports Java EE, and right now that's what we're saying is, the end of that. Jakarta EE is really meant for more of the cloud enabled applications that Liberty really is key for. So I will say this, we should never say never. And if there are enough customers that are demanding this type of support in traditional WebSphere, they got to raise it to us and let us know about it. But right now, no, there are no plans for WebSphere Traditional to support.
Okay. All right. And actually, I think I do know actually what Matt is asking. So the tool you're talking about for transforming for the namespace, when does that happen? Is it runtime or the source code or compile time? So.
Yep. So the transform, it's actually right now, it's at build time.
Okay.
That it modifies the binaries. We are not modifying the source code. It's modifying the binaries. So one thing that is nice too, a lot of times you don't have the source code for some of this stuff, that may be kind of old. And now you can take those applications and actually transform them to the new namespace, and you didn't even need the source code. So
wow, that's really awesome. I didn't realize I had that capability. I thought it was just like going through and just doing like the name replacement and all of that at like in your code, and then you have to commit it. So that's awesome that it actually changes the binary. So give them more hands off.
We are working with the IDE teams the various IDEs, Visual Studio or Visual Code in
Eclipse.
NetBeans, Eclipse, right? But we're working with them because there will be times when people need or want to change their source code as well. And so we're trying to get those tools in place to make that modification as easy as possible. But initially, we just want to be able to get their applications running. And so that's the binary change.
Cool. Awesome. All right. I think that's all the questions. One last thing, I do want to kind of follow up on what you were talking about, like adopting a spec or anything. If anybody watching or anybody in the users group is interested in adopting the spec or kind of just figuring that stuff out, definitely reach out to us and we can see about actually seeing if we can help with that process. Because I know a bunch of like, it's not with Jakarta, but like I know like Chicago JUG, they've like adopted like a JCP spec or something, or like a Java spec and a couple other things. So it can definitely be a good way to kind of really get into the world of open source and Java to kind of really understand like how all this stuff works. It's like when I first started getting into that, it was pretty interesting as well. It seemed less archaic and abstract. So
yep, definitely.
It's really good to do it then. So I think with that, like I said, it doesn't look like there's any more questions. So thank you again so much for coming, Kevin, and presenting. And it's actually great, this live stream. We had a little bit of a, with getting your screen share working, but otherwise, so was really successful, which was really nice because it was pretty stressful for me earlier from the previous one. So it's been pretty great that this was a pretty low stress live stream, and hopefully everyone else, it was a lot better experience in like the past couple of months as well. So thank you for coming again, Kevin.
Okay.
We'll see you in next month.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.